Hello, good evening, and welcome to Spa-Francorchamps for round 6 of the Nations Cup. I'm Chris Kavaney, your host for the series, and we are now at one of the most fabled race circuits in the world. Many racing drivers consider this as one of their favourites of all time, whether it be for endurance, Formula 1, junior categories. It always provides some interesting racing, and speaking of which, we can crack on straight into Division 2. And as usual, we'll look at the standings going into this round, and we can see that Paddle Award leads just by 3 points to Felix Rosenqvist in this Division 2 driver standings, and it's very, very close, even so underneath there, with Kevin Magnussen in 3rd, Will Power in 4th, Sebastian Buemi in 5th, Jeremy Wincup in 6th, all just separated by 4 points. Robert Wick in 7th place with 57, Arthur Leclerc after 2nd place in Monaco with 55 points, Antonio Felix da Costa in 51, Felipe Nasr in 43 points, then Felipe Albuquerque 42, Raffaele Marcello 41, Marcus Ericsson with 39, and then we have Cesar Fenestraz on 38, Stefan Riquelme on 38. Then we have Leonardo Fornaroli, who had an interesting weekend at Monaco at 36, Christian Lundgaard 35, Van der Linde 30, De Angelis and Hinchcliffe both in 22 and 18 respectively, Verona 16, Sheldon van der Linde at 12, Bruno Senna at 9, Giovinazzi and Antonio Fukuoka at 8, and then we have Rafael Camara at 7, and then we have the bottom feeders of Rafael Villagomez with 1, and both the Indian drivers with no points. And we can also see how this looks for the constructors, or nations rather should I say. Australia are leading the way only by 9 points, 125 at the top there, with Sweden at 116, Switzerland at 103, Denmark 100 points, and then we have Canada at 97, Monaco at 93, Portugal as well on 93, very, very close. And we have Mexico with 81, Brazil with 59, Argentina with 54, Italy with 52, South Africa with 42, so quite a close little bunch there, and then we have India with 0. But before we crack on with the first race of today, we must mention that there have been a few driver swaps in Division 2. At Italy, there has been a driver swap regarding that Fuoco has come back from his ban, but he's gone into a different car, therefore Giovinazzi, who was the replacement for Fuoco, stays in the car, but then Fuoco goes into the other car, if that makes any sense. So Giovinazzi is driving one car, Fuoco is taking the other car, with Leonardo Fornaroli being left out. And then at Team Argentina, because Sasha Fenestraz accumulated a lot of points because of a ban, Facu Regalia takes his spot in that car for this round. And now with that out of the way, we can see what the grid looks like. Sebastian Buemi starts on pole for the Division 2 sprint. Antonio Fuoco in 2nd place beside him. Stefan Riquelme right behind in 3rd place. And we've got Felipe Nasr in 4th. Paddle Award in 5th, Kevin Van der Linde in 6th, Roman De Angelis in 7th, Felipe Albuquerque in 8th, Arthur Leclerc in 9th, we got Antonio Giovinazzi in 10th, Sheldon van der Linde in 11th, Antonio Felix da Costa 12th, Will Power 13th, Mahavira Gunnathan as a surprise at 14th, Rafael Camara 15th, Felix Rosenqvist with a huge BOP hit in 16th place, Raffaele Marcello in 17th place, we have Robert Wickens in 18th place, Kevin Magnussen in 19th, Marcus Ericsson in 20th, Rafael Villagomez in 21st, Jimmy Winkup 22nd, Nico Vereen 23rd, Facu Regalia in 24th, then Lorraine Carter-Kane in 25th, and because Christian Lundgaard accumulated a penalty at Monaco, he starts at the back of the grid for the sprint. And now with all that done, it is to Ryan Ferris for the first race of the day. Take it away.
I'm back here in Spa for the first race of this meeting, and it is the League 2 Division 2 sprint race. All the lights are on and all the lights are out, and it's away here in Spa. Buemi got a good job, but it's Riquelme who goes past the pair of them off the second row into the lead. Fuoco manages to also take the position off of Buemi, and down the hill they come into the Eau Rouge Radion section. There's Felipe Albuquerque back in 8th position. He's being challenged already by the Brazilian, that is Felipe Nasr. So up into 8th position goes Nasr. A very gutsy move already as Riquelme leads. It's Fuoco under pressure, coming under pressure now from Buemi. Riquelme is having a look. Here's Buemi up the inside of Fuoco, but that doesn't quite stick, and Fuoco stays ahead for the time being. Pato Award in 4th, and Kelvin van der Linde in 5th. So as they come down the hill, the team very happy with Riquelme's start there, and it was a blistering start off the second row to take the lead of this sprint race. They come round now down into Piff Paff for the first time. See this one, an 11-lap race, and going to be pretty much a lot quicker than we saw in Monaco. And it's pretty much all down to who selects the right setup. Monaco was pretty much a one-way street in terms of setup, as we see Kelvin van der Linde under pressure now from Leclerc and De Angelis. So they come up to the bus stop chicane, and that's a big dummy move from Leclerc, and down the inside he goes into 5th position. So it's Monaco 1st and 5th, and there's a bit of a concertina effect going on down the back end of the field, and that is Marcus Ericsson in 24th position behind Jamie Whincup. Whincup not having the best of qualifying sessions after great success for the Australian team in Germany. It's been a bit of a return to normality, it seems, here in Spa. Drivers chopping and changing. There's Ericsson going up the inside of Verone. So Verone having a bit of a mistake, so I think he also lost out to Whincup as well. Back at the front here is Fuoco going a bit wide there through Pouon, and that's allowed Boemi onto the back end of him. Riquelme stretching away. Goes back up the hill, heading up towards the very fast Blanchimont section. It's pretty much flat out through there, and then heavy braking into the bus stop. Here's Felipe Nasr under pressure from De Angelis. So Albuquerque's actually lost out massively in these first 2 laps. He's gone from 7th position to 10th position so far, I believe. Nasr up to 7th. There's a few movers and shakers down the midfield. That's actually Raghunathan up into 13th position. So that's Verone getting it all wrong down at the source. Down the Camel Straight he goes, and here's Raffaele Marcello down in 15th position. Surprisingly, not had the measure of his fellow Swiss teammate, and that's Felipe Nasr going backwards, so he's got an issue. So Nasr, who was up into 7th position, he's limping the car home. I'm not sure whether or not it's a electrical issue, a brake issue, but he's got a long way to come, so he's going to be lucky if he makes it all the way back to pit lane. Rosenquist with a lack of grip there through Piff Paff, and the Team Sweden struggling a bit here in Spa. I don't think they've quite gone in the right direction for setup. A team we'd usually expect to see towards the front of the grid. Here's Leclerc all over the back of Pato Award now for 4th position. Down into the source comes Rafael Camara, holding on to 13th position, who's actually been as a result of Nazar having his issues. Ragunafan's up into 12th, so near nosebleed territory there for the Indian driver, and he's done it on merit. There's Roman De Angelis under pressure now from Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi around the outside through Lake Com, but De Angelis sticks it on out. Now, is he going to hold on? No. So Giovinazzi, who is our feature race pole sitter, goes up into 7th position. But can De Angelis do anything to come back at him? Here's Fuoco, still under pressure from Buemi. Come down to the bottom section and is then back uphill to Blanchimont and the bus stop. Can Buemi get into the slipstream? And it definitely looks like he's gaining. He's looking up the inside, but there's no way through there. And that's affected his run up into the chicane. But he's having a look up the inside. No, thinks better of it. Fuoco closes the door. Across to complete 4 laps. Buemi's lost a little bit of time there, and that's allowed O'Ward and Leclerc to catch up a little bit more. Leclerc has been very fast to catch up to O'Ward, but he's not managed to make his way past him yet. So down into Les Combes, and still Leclerc not able to find a way through on O'Ward. Looking back now to Christian Lundgaard, and he's quite a way off the back of the field. He's only got Verone and Regalia behind him, and Marcello has somehow broken his front wing. So Marcello with a broken front wing, we can see him there, just coming down the hill. So what has already been a tough race for Stefano Marcello. Sorry, Raffaele Marcello is made life a bit harder for him now, and any chance at points well and truly gone. Back at the front with Stefan Riquelme, and has he continued to extend his advantage? No, actually, Fuoco has closed a bit this lap. It's now down to 2.9 seconds. He's further on back. That was Robert Wickens fighting for 14th position. Ragunathan up into the points now. He's in 10th position. And just as I say that, Ragunathan says, "I'm in the points." And he still seems to have pretty good pace here. He's keeping toe with Sheldon van der Linde. Felipe Nasser sets the fastest lap of the race, obviously recovering from whatever issues he had earlier on in the race. Didn't quite get down to the bottom of that. A little bit of a lock up there in the background. I think that was Lundgaard there. But Karthikeyan also in 19th position, ahead of Whincup, Ericsson and Lundgaard. And seems like Team India making a good decision on the setup this time round. Here is Buemi, and Buemi's lost toe with Fuoco, it seems. We can to Nazar. Obviously, Nazar recently setting the fastest lap of the race. But he's got a lot of ground to catch up if he wants to do anything about scoring points, and I highly doubt that's going to happen. He's got Marcello in the background. He's going to try and hunt him down for position. But here is Fuoco. Riquelme responding this lap. He's managed to pull out 3 tenths over the Italian driver. But still, looking back to Nazar. Who is going to be very frustrated with the current situation. Still has the feature race to make amends for it. And Verone's pitting as well, so obviously Verone with an issue. He is on board with Buemi. Further in the distance, that's Pato Award, who still is managing to hold off Leclerc. You can see Leclerc just in the background as well. Here's Rosenquist, a driver who is not used to being this far down the grid. We'd be expecting to see him fighting more towards the sharp end this weekend, but obviously either not a fan of the Spa circuit or the Swedish team not going in the right direction for setup. Fuoco definitely dispatched Buemi now, but still not quite with the pace to deal with Riquelme. We've already passed half race distance now. Verone, who we're looking at for a moment. This is on board with Pato Award as we come up to the source, and you see Alpha Leclerc, and that's a lock up there for Award, so that's definitely going to bring an opportunity there for Leclerc. Leclerc in the slipstream is going to be trying to stay as close as possible as they go up the hill and onto the Kemmel Straight, and he's closing is Leclerc. He's definitely going to be having a look, and has he popped out a bit too early? He's popped out. He's going to have a look down the inside as they come up to Les Combes, and he's having a look, but no, Award later on the brakes stays ahead. Marcello takes that fastest lap of the race. Here's Rafael Camara. The only chance for Brazil to score any points. And they're all backed up now behind Ragunathan. So Ragunathan's gone through on Sheldon van der Linde into 9th. Ragunathan still in disbelief that he's running in the points on merit. But here comes van der Linde. He goes up the inside into Piff Paff, but no. Ragunathan shuts the door. Back at the front here is Riquelme for Monaco. Karthikeyan holding on to that 19th position ahead of Jamie Whincup. Whincup has been closed down by Ericsson. Ericsson, a race winner here in the Cup this season. So another driver you wouldn't expect to see this far back, as Sheldon van der Linde has a lock up into the chicane in his attempts to get past Ragunathan. 8 laps completed out of the 11. And Da Costa's out, so Da Costa's retired from 14th position. That must be down to some sort of failure. It's a transmission failure. The most common failure, it seems, in this championship. Back at the front, Riquelme must have made some sort of mistake somewhere, because he's lost a few temps to Fuoco. In fact, Fuoco is now closed in to 2.6 seconds. The gap was 3.3 seconds earlier. We're running on board now with Felipe Albuquerque, and he's got willpower up the inside, coming up into Lake Common. He goes through, but so does Camera. So has Albuquerque got an issue here to have lost 2 positions into one corner? We'll soon find out. He's pulling to one side to try and go past Camera, but no success there. There is Buemi in a fairly lonely 3rd position. Just about see Fuoco in the distance. Riquelme starting to respond a little bit on this lap. Rosenqvist has lost drive, so he's having to pull over. And what has already been not the best of starts to his weekend has gotten even worse with this retirement. Rosenqvist, one of the championship title contenders. Here is Jamie Whincup having a look once again at Narain Kafake, and he's still not managed to get through. Lundgaard also with trouble with his electrics, and he's having to retire. And that's down the start-finish straight, so it must have happened just as he was coming past the pit entry. Riquelme with another little mistake there, and that's allowed Fuoco to catch even more. We'll see what the gap is down to as we come across the next timing section. Fuoco has managed to bring it back to 2.7. So Riquelme should be coming through, and indeed he does. He goes through the timing marker down. It's 2.9 seconds, so Riquelme needs to make a monumental mistake now as they come to start the final lap in order for Fuoco to get through. It is Felipe Albuquerque on the back end of Power, so Power already taken that position off of the Portuguese driver, and Albuquerque wants it back. And another fade to the inside, but nothing quite happening there. He's got Camera for company there as well. Here is Felipe Nasser under pressure there from Raffaele Marcello, the two drivers with issues earlier on in the race. So Verone is behind these two, but this is essentially near enough the battle for the back end of the field. Meanwhile, Calvin van der Linde under pressure and making mistakes here in front of Antonio Giovinazzi. So can Giovinazzi make up one final position on this final lap? Seems like van der Linde's managed to regroup a bit in this sector. But here is Stefan Riquelme of Monaco. Rounds the bottom end of the field. The circuit has just got the uphill to go. Blanchimont. And then finally the chicane, and fairly comfortable now into the chicane. And Stefan Rakelmi becomes race winner of Division 2 sprint race here at Spa, with Fuoco coming in second and Buemi coming third. Brilliant points opportunity there for Team Italy. They haven't had the strongest of results this season, but it's looking on the up, with Giovinazzi finishing 7th as well. Sheldon van der Linde, the last person in the points, but also a big mention for Raghunathan in 9th position, scoring 2 points there for Team India. As the final drivers come across the line, here is Regalia across the line. Then we got Nazar and Marcello. The final driver is Verone, who's just coming through the final chicane. And across the line. So, confirmation of the results here, and it's Stefan Rakelmi who wins here, with Antonio Fuoco in 2nd position and Sebastian Buemi in 3rd position. Pato Award in 4th, with Arthur Leclerc in 5th position, so good points there for Team Monaco. Kelvin van der Linde in 6th position, with Antonio Giovinazzi in 7th position, Roman De Angelis in 8th, and Mahavir Raghunathan in 9th position, so picking up 2 points there for Team India. Sheldon van der Linde in 10th, with Will Power 11th, Rafael Camara in 12th, and Felipe Albuquerque in 13th. Moving further down the field, it is Robert Wickens in 14th, with Rafael Villagomez in 15th, Kevin Magnussen 16th, Wingcup in 17th, with Narain Karthikeyan in 18th position. Marcus Ericsson finished 19th, with Facu Regalia in 20th, Felipe Nasr in 21st, and Rafael Marcello in 22nd. Nico Verone being the last across the line in 23rd. Now on to the retirements. It's Christian Lundgaard in 24th, with Felix Rosenquist and Antonio Felix da Costa, both with transmission issues. So after that sprint race, it is back over to Chris.
Well, Monaco finally get themselves in the winning column, which is fantastic, but the best news of the whole thing is that India actually gets points, finally. Some people actually were betting that the whole season they'd go without any points, but, well, they've turned up here today. Congratulations to them, and I think BOP might be of help for them as well. But anywho, we can now crack on with the next segment, which will be Division 1, and we can see with the driver standings going into this, Philip Hansen has a somewhat healthy lead of 12 points, but of 87 points, going ahead of Alex Palou on 75. Vene Rast is very close next on 74. Scott Dixon, a worthy opponent, in 67. Sandy Stubik has been very impressive in Division 1 and 61 points. Naoki Yamamoto at 59. Shane Van Gisbergen 56 points. Alex Dunn having some great performances now in 53 points. Sebastian Bourdais on 46. Carl Larson on 46. Daniel Juncker on 38. Simon Pagenaud with 35. And then we have Joseph Newgarden with 34 points. And then we have Jack Aitken on 32. Nick De Vries on 31. Paul Di Resta with 29. Stoffel Van Dorn and Dries Van Door following next to 26 and 24 points respectively. They've got Andre Lotterer on 22, Max Hart on 22, James Collado on 20, Robin Franz on 18 points, Kubi Kobayashi with 14, Alfred Evans with 12 points, and then we've got Mick Schumacher with 11, and then we have Ella Lloyd on 8 points, and then we have at the bottom order Natalie Lewantel Varagul on 6 points, Makino with 5, Larry Tibble with 3, Mark Houston with 1, and Lynn and Benina X both on 0. And we can now see what the nation standings looks like. New Zealand on 123 points, just 10 ahead of Spain on 113, and not far behind both Germany and England on 107. And then we have France and 81 points in 5th place, USA with 80 points, Japan with 78, Ireland with 75, Thailand with 67 points, Scotland with 61, Netherlands, because they had a disqualification at Monaco, which had been appealed and then a successful appeal, there, I believe it was 12th place got restored, so they now go ahead of Belgium on 52 points, Belgium on 51, and then we have Wales last on 20. And similarly to Division 2, there was a driver swap. Only one here though, which is that Mick Schumacher is now back out of the car. He's done his stint with Andre Lotterer now serving his ban, done it, and now he's in the car for Germany. And now we can see what the grid looks like for the sprint. Sebastian Bourdais starts on pole with Daniel Juncker beside him in second place. Elfyn Evans with a mighty qualifying puts him in third for the sprint race. And then Simon Pagenaud in fourth, and we have Stoffel Vandoorne in fifth. Paul de Resta is sixth place. Sandy Stuvik in seventh. Nick de Vries eighth. Kamui Kobayashi and Naoki Yamamoto in ninth and 10th place. Robin Price in 11th, Joseph Newgarden in 12th, Natalie Lee-Montella-Barragul in 13th, quite a high qualifying for her there. And then we have Shane Bankerswinkle 14th, Alex Palou 15th, Scott Dixon 16th, all high BOPs in that segment there. Carl Larson in 17th place, Max Hart in 18th, Jack Aiken 19th, and then we have René Rast 20th, Andre Lotto 21st. They've been hit very hard with BOP, much like England, with Philip Hansen in 22nd, and then Dries Van Tor 23rd, Alex Dunn 24th, Ella Lloyd in 25th, and then James Collado 26th. And now the Division 1 sprint is back to Ryan Ferris.
And here we are once again for the Division 1 sprint race here in Spa. It's Sebastian Bourdais on pole with Daniel Juncker in second position. The lights are coming on, 5 lights are on, and the lights are out here in Spa. And it's a good getaway from Juncker. He takes the lead with Evans up into second position, and he swarms through into first position. So Elfyn Evans for Wales takes the lead here in this Division 1 sprint race. Daniel Juncker up into second and Bourdais down into third. Further down the field, there's a few other drivers jockeying position, but they have to sort themselves out before going up the hill. And here we go. Evans leading. He's on the defensive now. Paul de Resta in 9th position. So he's battling for position there with Robin Freins. Whilst also under pressure from Yamamoto. But back at the front it's Evans, almost with a second advantage here. Team willing him on with a great start. Here's Yamamoto trying up the inside of de Resta, but not quite working there. And that puts him under pressure now from Alex Palou. As we round the bottom end of the circuit and back up the hill one more time. And Evans already with a 1.5 second advantage here, and they've not even completed the first lap. Juncker in second, but definitely under pressure now from Bourdais. Bourdais lining him up for a move, but he's going around the outside here into the bus stop. That doesn't quite work for the French driver. And Lotterer on his return already saying something wrong with the car. Team Germany going the completely wrong direction here with their setup after what has been a brilliant post-upgrade window. It's all crashing back to reality for the German team. Bourdais in the slipstream of Juncker as we have confirmation there of Lotterer making it to pit lane. And he's going up the inside. He's going to try and make a move up the inside into Lake Combe, but not quite close enough. Juncker shuts the door. Stoffel Vandoorne, the local man here for Team Belgium. He is running in 4th position behind Bourdais, so if Bourdais continues to make any half-hearted moves on Juncker, we're going to be sure, if he doesn't already, the Belgian driver is going to be through. This looks like Yamamoto with an issue. Yamamoto, who is due to be on the front row later for the feature race, coming under some sort of issue here, although he still seems to be going at a reasonable pace, so it must have been a mistake there that allowed the rest of the field through. He's dropped down into 13th position. It Here's Joseph Newgarden, 12th position behind Shane van Gisbergen. Elfyn Evans with another fastest lap of the race. That's allowed him to go 3.1 seconds ahead of Juncadella. Now René Rast also for Germany in pit lane, so this has been a terrible race already for Team Germany. They weren't looking likely for points anyway, but they seem to be making life even harder. Here's Lotterer with a lock up into the bus stop. While the rest of the field is coming into Les Combes, he's only just coming across the start-finish straight. And Elfyn Evans, where on earth has this turn of pace come from the Team Wales car? 3.2 seconds ahead of Juncadella. Team Wales are recent, have been lucky to be scrapping for points, let alone race wins. If we look back now to Alex Dunn and Hart in 20th and 21st position. Then you have the two Team England cars of Collado and Hansen in 22nd and 23rd. And Dries van Thor needing to pit, so an issue there for the Belgian driver. He's dropped back to 24th position. And this is a little bit of a inter-team battle going on there between the two English drivers. And that's Robin Frijns getting it completely wrong out of the source. Now, he has spun in quite an awkward position there, and he's pretty much going to have to wait for the rest of the field to come through. He's going to have to spin, turn it there. Right, and he spun it back round again, so making a complete meal of that. Bourdais now right up with Danny Juncadella for that second place position. You can see Stoffel van Dorn potentially having, and that's Ella Lloyd with an issue. So where it's going all hunky-dory for one Welsh car, it looks like a transmission failure for the other. So, to rest comes the Welsh car of Ella Lloyd. And in the background here is Juncadella under pressure still from Bourdais. Bourdais trying around the outside, but still not going to work there. This is allowing Evans to extend his advantage even more. It's now almost 5 seconds. In the background, it looks like Kobayashi trying to make a move there on Pagenaud. I believe he has gone through. Bourdais not happy with Juncadella. And Hansen is out of the race, so Hansen out. Suspension failure there for Hansen. Which also took out his front wing, so a bit of work there, bit of repairs there for the English team to do before the feature race. Here's Jack Aitken. He's up into 13th position. And it looks like an issue there, maybe. Or just purely being out-dragged and out-braked into that corner there. There's James Collado, the sole remaining English car. He's working hard to catch up onto the back of the two Scottish cars, and it definitely looks like an issue there for Jack Aitken as he is going backwards. Meanwhile, at the front, it's Evans, 5.6 seconds. As he comes to complete the 5th lap of 11. So not even half race distance, and he's pretty much been pulling out almost a second a lap over the field behind. And whatever's been going on between Juncadella and Bourdais, it's allowed Vanthor and Kobayashi to catch up, and it also looks like Pagenaud's on the back of them as well, as Kobayashi has a look down the inside of Van Dorn. Pagenaud getting interest as well as they come down the hill and then shoot back up the hill of Eau Rouge and Radion, and Max Hart with an engine issue. But here is Pagenaud, he's going side by side now and goes through on Kobayashi into 5th position. Kobayashi thought about going around the outside but thought better of it, and this has allowed Sandy Stuvik onto the back end as well with Kobayashi. So Stuvik once again up in 7th position, a driver who has shown a lot of pace so far this season but has not necessarily had the reliability to see it through to the end. There's Juncadella with a little struggle for grip there. That's going to entice Bourdais to line up another move. They're just rounding the final corner before the next timing checkpoint. Will we see any change in gap? No, it's pretty much stayed the same at 0.7 of a second between the two drivers in 2nd and 3rd position. But Bourdais with the slipstream now, and he's definitely closing there onto the back end. Sorry, this is actually Pagenaud now. So Simon Pagenaud on the back of Vanthor, this is Van Dorn. Yamamoto on the comeback after being passed by a couple of drivers into the Com earlier. That's 11th position for the Japanese driver. But back towards the front, it's Juncadella ahead of Bourdais. Bourdais still staying within a second of the Spanish driver. Well, Pagenaud is trying to have a look up the inside of Van Dorn and goes through into Les Combes ahead of Van Dorn. So it is now France 3rd and 4th. So can Pagenaud catch and pass his teammate? He's got just over a second to catch. Bourdais, who is still struggling to find a way past Juncadella, whilst Elvin Evans continues to sprint off in the distance. Stuvik now having a look up the inside of Kobayashi, but still not managing to find a way through at Piff Path. On board now. So here is Juncadella still staying ahead of Bourdais, but Bourdais has a look down the inside, but that was definitely a little too late from the French driver and was if he committed any more, that was going to definitely be a front wing missing for the French driver. Kobayashi still holding on to that 6th position ahead of Stuvik, but locking up into La Source. And Stuvik well within the slipstream of Kobayashi, but not closing enough. Lotterer being told to box again, so something wrong again with the Team Germany car. So German engineering obviously not coming to the forefront this weekend. But still looking towards the front of the field. It is Juncker ahead of Bourdais, but Bourdais being closed by his teammate Pagenaud. But this is Evans still increasing his lead. This is Stuvik still trying to find a way from Kobayashi, and obviously by making that early move before Blanchimont, that's affecting any chance and making a move up into the chicane. Meanwhile, Bourdais under pressure from Pagenaud. Less than a second between the pair of them. It's half a second between the pair of them. Pagenaud having a look up the inside into the source, but definitely thinks better of it, and that's Stuvik off. So Stuvik out of the race. As I said earlier, has shown pace all season, just hasn't had the reliability in that car to back up the results. And it is back to the drawing board there for Jake Sanson. So another transmission failure there. Bourdais still under pressure. The team saying Pagenaud is faster than you. Very reminiscent of some Ferrari team orders from Hockenheim going some years back. Bourdais not seeming to take too much notice of the cryptic message that came his way. Still staying ahead of Pagenaud. But Pagenaud definitely has this race pace. And he's trying to have a look through Blanchimont, but that's definitely not a place you want to try and have a look. And he's having another look up down the inside. Has he gone through? Yes, he has. So Pagenaud has taken 3rd position off of Bourdais, and he is going to chase on after Juncker. So Bourdais not got much time to lick his wounds, and he's still got Stoffel Van Dorn in 5th position, just behind. Less than a second away. Jack Aitken sets the fastest lap of the race. So what sort of pressure can Pagenaud put on Juncker in these final stages? Only a lap and a half left to go on a race that has been dominated by that man Evans, who's nearly 10 seconds ahead now of 2nd position Juncker. is Larson. Larson in 16th and not really performing the way that we'd think he would perform. But this is Pagenaud, who's definitely catching on Juncadella. Under a second now between the pair of them. Meanwhile, the other driver in contention for Team Belgium under pressure, but definitely Juncadella as they come onto this final lap. It's do or die here from Simon Pagenaud. He's definitely got the pace over Juncadella. And he's in the slipstream, coming back down the hill before going up the hill. Eau Rouge, Radion. He's in the slipstream as he comes down the Kemmel Straight. Is he close enough? I don't think he's quite close enough this time round. It's 3/10 between the pair of them through the end of the first sector. And just through the corners you can see Pagenaud making it big time through the corners. And he's staying close enough to him. Are we going to see a move? He's looking down the inside. Whoa. Definitely not a place where you'd expect to be looking this time round. Through Pouon. Not many overtakes have generally achieved from there. Through Piff Paff, and Pagenaud's got to hope that he can get a good drive through this bottom end section as we cut to Evans, who's over 10 seconds ahead of Juncadella. An absolute commanding victory here as he rounds the final chicane, and it's Elfyn Evans who comes across the line to win here in Spa. Juncadella just about holds on to that second position ahead of Pagenaud, with Bourdais in fourth. Van Dorn has an engine failure in the last lap, so what was going to be a top 5 finish for the Belgian driver on home soil has seen his car not so reliably make it to the finish, and has been declared out on the last lap. Final cars come across the line. Robin Fryans in 18th after essentially the double spin turn. Aitken Rast across the line, and Lotterer, who is miles behind, comes around into the final bus stop chicane up into 22nd position and rounds off what has been so far a terrible start for Team Germany. So, final confirmation, Elfyn Evans wins here in Spa in the sprint race, with Daniel Juncadella in second, Simon Pagenaud in third, and Sebastian Bourdais in fourth position. Kamui Kobayashi coming in fifth, with Alex Palou in sixth position. Paul de Resta finishes seventh, with Joseph Newgarden in eighth. Yamamoto in ninth, and Shane van Gisbergen takes the final points paying position in 10th. Nick de Vries 11th, with Lee Watanabe in 12th, and it was Dixon in 13th, Dunn in 14th, Larson 15th, Collado 16th, Hart finishes 17th, Robin Fryans 18th, Dries van Thor in 19th, and Jack Aitken in 20th position. René Rast and Lotterer in 21st and 22nd, and we finally go to the retirements of Van Dorn in 23rd, Stuvik in 24th, Hansen in 25th, and Lloyd in 26th. And after that sprint race, it's once again back to Chris.
What a result for Ewan Gale and Elfyn Evans. What a fantastic fantastic race for him. Pretty much dominated the race. He must have just been properly on one, as it were. That will hopefully, if that momentum can get carried through into the feature race later on, it might mean that Wales have finally woken up and said something about the potential relegation zone. You know, it might make things very interesting, but that's soon. But we have a race before that, which is the Division 2 featured race, and we can see the grid for this. Antonio Giovinazzi, who's only been driving 2 races in the Nations Cup, is now on pole, with Arthur Leclerc in second place, Philippe Albuquerque in third, Jermaine D'Angelis in fourth, Kelvin van der Linde in fifth, and then we have Pato Award in the championship leader in sixth, Felipe Nasr in seventh, Stefan Rakelmi in eighth, Antonio Fuoco in ninth, Sebastian Buemi in 10th, Sheldon van der Linde in 11th, Antonio Bias Acosta in 12th, Will Power 13th, Mahavir Raghunathan, again great qualifying, in 14th, Rafael Camara in 15th, and then one of the championship contenders, Felix Rosenquist in 16th. He might want to try and rectify something there. And then Rafael Marcello in 17th, Robert Wickens 18th, Kevin Magnussen 19th, Ericsson 20th, Rafael Villagomez 21st, Jamie Whincup 22nd, Nico Barone 23rd, Christian Longard 24th, and then Facu Regalia 25th, and Narain Carter-Kane in 26th. And now for the third race of the day, Ryan Ferris, take it from here.
The first feature race of the day is Division 2 here in Spa. As the lights come on, it's Giovinazzi on pole with Leclerc in second position, who's going to be making the jump to the start as they're away. So good start there from Leclerc, who goes round the outside, but Giovinazzi still has the inside. One of the Brazilian drivers coming through, and that's Nasr up into third. So Arthur Leclerc takes the lead here in Belgium with Giovinazzi behind, and Nasr on a good run down into the Eau Rouge section, but had to back out of that. Lungard towards the back, so I don't know if he's had an issue back there. But as they come down the Kemmel Straight for the first time, it's Arthur Leclerc leading from Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi not managing to get enough of a slipstream. Here's Roman De Angelis going up the inside of Albuquerque. So Albuquerque has gone from third down to fifth already in the space of a single sector. And still, it is as they come down the hill. Leclerc with a fairly decent getaway, getting that first position off of Giovinazzi. Team Italy definitely having a good showing here in Spa. And it looks like Fuoco, his teammate, has had a broken front wing, so where it's going well for one Italian, not so well for the other. Looking further on back, this is Stefan Rakelmi in 8th position, who's trying to harass Kelvin van der Linde in 7th, and he seems to be all over the back of the South African driver as they come back up the hill into Blanchimont. Is he going to try and make a move here now? Through they go. Oh, and there's definitely a contact there and a wheel lost there for Fuoco. So who is that that's hit him? It's Jamie Whincup. So Jamie Whincup. We'd have to get a replay of exactly what happened there, but obviously Fuoco limping back to the pits with a front wing damage, and it seems the rest of the field has come along at a much faster pace. Back at the front, Leclerc has extended his advantage in the lead to over a second. Massive crowds, as you can see on the banks there, and that's front wing damage for Camera there. Clipped the clipped the curb at the top of Radial and has lost part of his front wing. So he's going to be in a similar situation where he's going to be going very slowly back to pit lane. Mahavir Raghunathan's making a move. He's gone up the inside of Raffaele Marcello for 11th position. Team India somehow having quite a good weekend so far. But meanwhile, here's Stefan Rakelmi under pressure now from Will Power. So I'm assuming he's attempted a move somewhere on van der Linde and it's not quite worked out, and he's now found himself in the clutches of the Australian driver. in the meantime, Van der Linde has had a bit of a regroup, and he's all over the back of O'Ward, who's made a mistake there at the bottom. Up the hill, he's in the slipstream, and he's trying to go for a move through in Blanchimont. No, you don't want to do something there. And that's possibly jeopardised any attempt on making a move up into the bus stop, and he's got Power, who Riquelme thought about a move, and in doing so has allowed Power through up into 8th position. Still, Leclerc with nearly a 2-second advantage now to Giovinazzi. Potentially Leclerc running a lighter fuel load in this early stint. Camera has finally made it back to the pit lane. Here is looking to Giovinazzi as we look back. What's happened there? It looks like Calvin van der Linde has come out of, or onto the Kemmel Straight and just drifted out wide, and he's lost part of his front wing as a result of it. So he's now got Power all over the back of him now, and he's got a long old trudge back to pit lane as you see Riquelme going through as well. His brother's going to be coming through on him very soon. So he's actually holding up Sheldon there, and Sheldon will not be very happy. And the field really streaming on through. That's promoted Ragunathan into 10th position. Obviously, with this being the feature race, points go down to the top 15. And Albuquerque having another little issue there. So just holding on ahead of Pato O'Ward in that 5th position. But he carries on the way he is. O'Ward's looking for a move up into the bus stop. Albuquerque goes for the defensive, but we cut to Giovinazzi. And O'Ward tries the dummy. Goes up the inside. Didn't quite work this time. Riquelme on the back end of Power, so they don't have Van der Linde to worry about. Van der Linde's just got back to pit lane. So unless they can change something up on the strategy, that's pretty much his race done and dusted for today. Here's Roman De Angelis in 4th position. We look further on back to Albuquerque, who's got O'Ward going up the inside, but still not quite close enough into the braking zone. Albuquerque holds on for 5th position. In the meantime, you see Riquelme still ahead of Power. Now, he's potentially, if he's left to run his own lines, he has got the potential to catch up to the back of O'Ward. So keep an eye on that gap. Meanwhile, Felipe Nasr trying to close in on Giovinazzi. You can see the Italian just ahead of him as Marcello goes for a bid up the inside of Ragunathan, but that doesn't quite work. He's trying to pick up that 10th position from the Indian driver. This has now put his teammate Buemi onto the back of him. Buemi, who was the reverse grid pole sitter in the sprint race. It's not going quite so well this weekend for Team Switzerland. Front, and it seems pretty much each lap Leclerc pulls a second out on Giovinazzi as he goes across the line, and it is a 3.1 second advantage. Sebastian Buemi having a bit of a shuffle going on there, and somehow he's managed to pick his way up into 10th position, so I don't know what's quite happened here. Marcello's shuffled back into 13th, so if we can get a replay of what happened, so somehow Buemi's made up 2 positions there. Da Costa is also managed to slot into that 12th position ahead of Marcello. further back in the points positions is Villagomez and Wickens. And that's another driver taking it out wide onto Les Combes, or Kemmel Straight, I should say, and that's Ericsson. So he's lost part of his wing. Although it doesn't seem to be going too slow, surprisingly. Obviously, this middle sector isn't the fastest of sectors, with some quite tight, twisty, intricate corners, as we see a charge for position there. And that's Verone on Magnussen. Carthagena running in 18th position. And pretty much in the position he's in at the moment, as long as he keeps his powder dry and others ahead fall by the wayside, could be on for some points today. And with the points scored by India in the sprint race earlier, as we see further on back, that's Marcello trying to find a way through on Da Costa, whilst Da Costa tries to find a way through on Raghunathan. So this is a really tight battle for 11th position. And Marcello into turn 1 and takes that position from Da Costa, so that promotes him up into 12th position. He can now go back after Raghunathan, which he was trying to do so already. Da Costa now under pressure from Villagomez. Ericsson's managed to make it back to pit lane. And here we go, Villagomez up the inside of Da Costa. And it goes through into 13th position at the end of the Kemmel Straight, and that's another couple of points scored there for the Mexican driver. Here's Felipe Nasr briefly, still in that 3rd position. He pretty much made all of that ground off that amazing start that he had. Sheldon van der Linde in 9th position, trying to chase down Will Power, who's fallen off the back of Stefan Ricalmi now. Ricalmi not too far away from Award, but just outside that 2nd. Generally, when the drivers are within a second of the driver ahead, although there are no DRS or KERS or anything in this championship, you do generally start to see quite a big impact on the slipstream effect. But here is Marcello trying to find another way through on Raghunathan. Is he going to manage anything up into bus stop? It doesn't look like he's managed anything, so the Indian driver survives for one more lap. Further on back, this is Calvin van der Linde recovering from that front wing damage he had earlier. He's in between Jamie Whincup and Camera. I didn't see, unless something popped up whilst I was looking away, I didn't see if there was anything that came up for Whincup regarding the incident that he had with Fuoco. And further on back, you can see, I think that was Rosenquist trying to pull a move there on Lundgaard. Here we are, Rosenquist. Seems Team Sweden have not gone the best way for setup this weekend. Rosenquist, who you'd expect to see up the sharp end, he's, well, just outside the points. He's got to try and find a way through on Wickens, that is actually. I do find myself getting a little bit mixed up with the liveries for Canada and Denmark, I believe. Very similar. But here we are with Ricalmi in 7th position, still hunting down Pato Award. He's now within a second of the Mexican driver. Back at the front, Leclerc continues to extend his advantage to Giovinazzi, although he didn't manage to pull anything out in the second sector there. Actually, he lost 1,000th to the Italian driver. Marcello started to become quite frustrated with Ragunathan ahead. And what I was going to say earlier is, with Ragunathan scoring points in that first race earlier in the sprint, as we see Lundgaard on Magnussen, battle going on just outside the points. So that was India's first points of the season, and now that means all teams within the championship have now scored points across both Division 1 and Division 2. Leclerc's team talking pit strategy. That gap is actually, although not by much, slowly starting to come down between Leclerc and Giovinazzi. It's nothing too much to worry about at the moment for the Monegasque driver. But potential cause for concern. Has he used too much of his early tyre life up? Is he going to be pitting early? Or will eventually become revealed, as we're not too far away from the opening of the pit window. Here's Ericsson going completely wide there. Through what is the speaker's corner, as he comes down through what most people refer to as no name. Here's Villagomez with a move up the inside, although I didn't quite see if he managed to make it stick. I think he's trying to find a way through on Marcello, as Marcello's still failing to find a way through on Ragunathan. Here is Shem van der Linde trying to catch up to Will Power, but he also has Boemi for company. Towards the front here is De Angelis, and De Angelis has been a real breath of fresh air for the Canadian team. Hinchcliffe was able to score points here and there, but De Angelis just seems to be far more competitive. In the meantime, I think I did see some shuffling for position. And it was Riquelme. So, yeah, Riquelme's gone off track and he's gone down to 10th position, so he's had a bit of an off track somewhere. And there it is, actually. He's lost part of his front wing. I think luckily for him, he's pretty much timed that for the opening of the pit window, but you can see a massive train of cars trying to find a way through on the Monegasque driver, and this is getting pretty dicey now. He wants to try and stay out of trouble. Luckily, it hasn't been collected by anyone. It has caused a bit of headache for some of the other drivers. But back to the front, and there's a front wing missing for Leclerc. Leclerc, from the lead, a commanding lead, has lost part of his front wing at the top of Radial. And he's going to have to limp the car back to pit lane. In the meantime, Giovinazzi is going to be closing all the while from what was a 6.5 second advantage. Through the first sector, it's already down by a second, and you can see Giovinazzi closing big time. Nasser isn't too far behind either. for Naz's sake, you'd almost want to find Giovinazzi stuck behind Leclerc a little bit to try and eke some of the gap towards Giovinazzi. But I think Leclerc may... Actually, no, I think on the run up to Blanchimont, Giovinazzi may find himself upon the Monegasque driver as he continues to close up the hill. And he's trying up the inside at Blanchimont. That's a really, really interesting move to go for, because it's very high risk. But hasn't really cost him too much time. We'll check as we go across the line. So Giovinazzi leads from Naza by 2 seconds. Leclerc comes in for a front wing change and a change of tyres after 10 laps completed. 12 laps to go, so the team can still turn this into their strategy. It may not be what they want to go for, but it means they've done 10 laps so far and they'll do 12 laps on the current stint. Da Costa has also pitted. Here's Rosenquist trying up the inside of Wing Cup and does so, takes 22nd position. In the meantime, Da Costa and Villagomez has pitted, so other drivers and other teams coming into pit as part of the strategy. So all's not lost yet for Leclerc, but obviously it's cost him a lot of time. Where is Leclerc? So Leclerc has come out behind Wickens and is approximately 1.6 seconds behind Wickens, so he's got some time to make on the Canadian driver as Villagomez on fresh tyres comes through and past on Wing Cup. Now has Da Costa ahead of him. Obviously Da Costa has pitted as well. Riquelme, who pitted for a front wing, it did not go particularly well for Monaco in the space of just pretty much 1 or 2 laps, as we see Leclerc all over the back of Wickens, and he's going to have to time this right if he wants to make the move. He's going to try up the inside at Blanchimont, but you know that's not going to happen. He's going to try it round the outside. Is he going to dummy up the inside? No, not close enough. And Wickens carries on. Willpower pits from 7th position. I also see Sheldon van der Linde, that is, in pit lane as well. But all the while, as that's Ragunathan having a bit of a spin, or a lock-up into La Source, that's put Marcello onto the back of him. Giovinazzi leads by 2.1 seconds. Obviously at some point he's going to be coming into pit lane soon. Leclerc manages to get through on Wickens, so up into 9th position for the Monegasque driver. He is currently first of the people to pit, as that's a lock-up there, I think, from Marcello just up ahead, who's still trying to find his way past Ragunathan. Once again, the Indian drivers becoming quite tough drivers to overtake. They seem to be very, very good at making their cars quite wide compared to the rest of the field. Giovinazzi being called to box. Wondering where he'll be in comparison to Leclerc. It'll be quite close. Obviously Leclerc would have lost a little bit of time as a result of that broken front wing. Naza has managed to close in by 10th. We should see De Angelis in 3rd position. That'll be promoted into 1st actually, as Naza has also come into the pits with Giovinazzi. So where does that allow Albuquerque in as well? Lundgaard all over the back of Karthikeyan, who's running in 12th position at the moment as a result of other people pitting. Here comes Arthur Leclerc. Where does he come out in comparison? He's stuck behind this battle here between Ragunathan and Marcello, but he's come out just ahead of Giovinazzi. There's Giovinazzi just there, right behind him. So Leclerc is going to hope that he can dispatch of the two drivers ahead as soon as possible. And actually, he's lost a bit of time going up the hill. He's not had a good run up Eau Rouge, and this has allowed Giovinazzi to pull up alongside Giovinazzi through on Leclerc. So Giovinazzi takes the next race lead. And quite interesting for that to happen there. Obviously, Leclerc on much warmer tyres. He's already had a couple of laps to get him up to temperature. And obviously not quite having the same pace as he did in the first stint, as we still continue to see Ragunathan and Marcello scrapping for what is now third position. But now Giovinazzi is going to send it up the inside of the Swiss driver, pushes him out the way, and that's fourth on the road for the Italian. Now Leclerc is going to have to do something very similar as they come out of Stavolo up the hill. He's got Nazar all over the back of him now, so he's going to have to do something pretty quick here. Coming through Blanchimont, and here comes Leclerc. He's trying to do the dummy, but in doing so, that's opened the door for Nazar, and Nazar goes up the inside of the pair of them. So Felipe Nasser with an amazing move into the chicane, goes ahead of Leclerc, and now that puts him up in second position. Now, as most people have everyone has now gone into pit lane now, so this is now officially the battle for the lead. Has he got the pace to go about chasing Giovinazzi? We shall see where it all stands coming through the first sector timer, as you see the line there. It's 1.9 between Giovinazzi and Nazar. It seems like Giovinazzi has got onto these new tyres, and he seems to be very much enjoying the fresh tyres compared to the other two behind him. And Nazar definitely out wide there. That's going to put Leclerc back onto him. Down the hill through No Name. And Leclerc trying to make amends for his mistake. He's still trying to catch up onto the back end, as it looks like an issue there for one of the Danish drivers, and that's Van der Linde through. It's going to be Kelvin Van der Linde. Sheldon Van der Linde is sat in 9th at the moment. Here's Ragunathan down in 14th position now, so he's lost out a bit, and he's on the back end of Camera, who obviously pitted quite early. So if Camera is going to go to the finish on these tyres, it's going to struggle towards the end, and Ragunathan goes down the inside, but not quite close enough to make the move stick there. Here's Arthur Leclerc still trailing Felipe Nasr. There's 1.4 seconds between the pair of them. Giovinazzi has carried on extending his advantage. Obviously, has gained quite a bit as Ragunathan has another look now and goes up the inside of Wickens to take 13th position. He's now got Bill Gomez up ahead, which is quite close. Down through Puon. Or down through No Name into Puon. And still, it's all managed to close back up and again. And now this time we'll find Wickens all over the back end of Ragunathan, unless Ragunathan can find a way past Villagomez. Ragunathan's not going to be able to pull the butt dummy, because he's going to leave the door wide open for Wickens to get back through as they come round the corner. He's going for the dummy now, and it seems like Wickens has actually gone backwards a bit, and he tried to pull it off, and it again hasn't worked. But in the meantime, Rosenquist 10th, Da Costa 11th, Villagomez all the way down to Wickens in 14th, all glued together. And in the meantime, Villagomez goes up the inside of Da Costa, so he takes 11th position, that is, off of Da Costa. Da Costa seemingly struggling, as you see Ragunathan going for a move. No, thought better of it into Overage, but that's now put him under pressure now from Wickens. And all the while, that's allowed Marcello to catch up onto the back of him, but Wickens pulls out, but I don't think he's close enough. No, not close enough for a move. He's going to have another look again. Wickens, knowing Marcello doesn't need a second invitation, so he's going to have to get the job done sooner rather than later on Ragunathan if he wants that position back. Further on back, this is Magnusson for 20th position on Ericsson. And who's that? And Villagomez has lost the gearbox. The most fragile component in this championship has given up on Villagomez, who was having a very good performance, possibly one of his better performances this season. But that is our first mechanical retirement. But all the while, Da Costa swarms all over the back. And that's contact there. So Nico Varone, what on earth happened there? So just up ahead, Varone's catching up onto the back of Marcello, and Marcello trying to find a way through on Wickens, and just somehow makes contact there. I didn't quite see, didn't look as though Marcello had moved over, so it was just a bang of wheels. And it seems Marcello believes he's kind of taken a bit of an advantage there, and he's been given a 10-second penalty for that collision. That's let Rosenquist off the hook. So Felipe Nasr still in that second position, but all the while it seems Giovinazzi's starting to pull away now. Whether or not we'll see a similar situation like Leclerc, where his tyres did start to drop off towards the end of the stint before, and that's Riquelme again at the top of Raidillon, losing the front wing. Now at some point Buemi's had a bit of an incident as well and has had to pit down to 21st. And Magnusson struggling for grip there through No Name, or what is now referred to as Speaker's Corner, through Puon, still in the hunt for Narain Carthacane just up ahead. We stay on board through Lafanya, or as the locals refer to as Piff Path. is Facu Regalia, who's running in the points at the moment, or the singular point, as both Argentine drivers take the final 2 places in the points at the moment, and it seems like he's starting to find his feet here in this championship. Here with Lagunathan on the back end of Rosenquist, and he's had a good run up the hill. He's coming on to the Camel Straight, and he's right in the slipstream of Rosenquist now. He pulls alongside, but as he came out a bit too early, he's going to try and outbrake Rosenquist into Lake Carmen, does so. Brilliant move there from the Indian driver. Confirmation there that Riquelme has managed to make it back to pit lane, and he's really rocketing away now, as Da Costa has a lock up there, and that's allowed Marcello to have another sniff, although door not open enough to allow him through. But still very much under pressure there from the Swiss driver. And once again, he's wanting to find a way through as they come into pit path. And through goes Marcello, does he? Da Costa tried to hang on there. And by doing so has cost him quite a bit of time, and he's now under pressure from Robert Wickens. Marcello is going to set about going after Felix Rosenquist, who is already not recovered from licking his wounds from being passed from the Indian car of Lagunathan. And already it seems Marcello's trying to find a way through. But as we look further back, we've got this train from 12th down to 15th. All smelling blood from Da Costa. As we go back down the hill, it's all about who gets a good run off the top of the hill of Radion down the Camel Straight. It seems like Da Costa's actually had a really good run there, and Wickens has had a poor one. Buemi up the inside, oh, and what has happened there? A really terrible misjudgment there from the Swiss driver, and he's taken himself out the race and hampered Calvin van der Linde as well. So down the inside, a real dive bomb, locks all wheels up. And in doing so, takes himself out of the race. Obviously driving frustrated with whatever issue he had earlier on in the race. And once again, Buemi, who, again, another one of these drivers who are in the running for the championship, has yet another retirement from a feature race. Obviously the feature race being the big point scorer opportunity. So 3 retirements now, with 18 laps completed of the 22. They've rattled off pretty quickly here. Felipe Nasser, actually, unless Giovinazzi's made a mistake somewhere, it looks to be starting to reel in the Italian. Buemi having a fairly long-winded recovery as he just gets craned off the circuit. There's still yellow flags into turn 1. Giovinazzi responds this time round. He's extended his lead back out to 3 seconds. Leclerc still there in 3rd position, and a fairly lonely 3rd position at the moment. But back to this battle, and in the meantime, Wickens, I'm assuming it's tried making a move on Da Costa, and he's lost out to both Verone and Regalia. So what has happened there? We were obviously unable to get a replay in that instance, but confirmation there, Wickens has shuffled back to the final point scoring position in 15th. And it seems like the Argentine drivers are starting to find something here as we go back to Riquelme, who looked to be trying to find his way back through on the leader. And it is Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi being told not to squabble with Riquelme, and it would be fairly wise, because obviously, and he has let him through, but in doing so, that's allowed Nasr to get a lot closer now, as you can see there. We'll see as they come through the check mark, and it is 1.3 seconds. So 1.3 seconds between Nasr and the Italian driver of Giovinazzi. But I'm pretty sure if Giovinazzi's still been looking after his tyres, he's going to go back his regular business. We'll see as they cross the line, as I think he's already managed to extend a bit of an advantage this time round, and we'll see he's managed to pull the 10th back. Pato Award were a problem now, so Award in 6th position, he's going to have to pit. Here's Regalia trying to find a way through on his teammate. So Award's made it back to pit lane, and that's what was looking very promising for Team Mexico in the final few laps is all kind of falling apart. He'll hopefully still manage to come out in the points somewhere, or he's going to be battling pretty close. He comes out in 14th position, although Wickens is it's all just sorting itself out on the timing tower, and yeah, it is 14th position. 15th position now, as he's probably lost out down the Camel Straight, so 1 point at the moment for Award, but he's going to be on fresher tyres, so he should, with 2 laps to go, hopefully have enough of a tyre delta to find his way past a couple of the drivers ahead. In the meantime, we're looking at Felipe Albuquerque in 4th position. This is after Leclerc, who was, I will remind you, in a very commanding position, and just to say so, what could have been, he could have also won in Monaco. That didn't quite work, and another mistake for a Monegasque driver, costing him the victory today. As it stands, it's Giovinazzi who, as I suspected, has gone about extending that advantage that he lost, but in the meantime, Roman De Angelis all over the back of Albuquerque. Now, is he going to have a move up into the final chicane? No, not quite this time. Bit of a lock up there for the Canadian driver, who's still hunting down his fellow WEC opponent. Baku Regalia in 14th position, still holding on ahead of Wickens. Wickens going to see if he can find a way through. In the meantime, Award making his way up, as I expected, past Wickens, Regalia, and he's already on the back of Varone for 12th. As they come on to this final lap, is he going to have a move into turn 1? No, not quite. There's a lock-up just up ahead for Rosenquist. That's going to entice Da Costa into maybe making a move. Here's Awards having a sniff, but that's going to cost him. And Leclerc, what's happened here? Nasr, on the last lap, he's lost his front wing. On the last lap, Nasr loses the front wing the same way Leclerc lost the lead, and as it stands at the moment, he's going to struggle to make the finish in the podium position. But here is Giovinazzi, who's now got a fairly comfortable advantage now as a result of Nasr having the front wing taken off of his car. Nearly a 5-second advantage now to Leclerc, and it is a 5-second advantage to Leclerc, so he can just cruise on through this final sector. And what has been a torrid start to the season for Team Italy, it seems redemption here in Spa. Giovinazzi comes out of the final corner and crosses the line to win here in Spa. Leclerc comes across in 2nd position, and Nasr has dropped back, and that's allowed Albuquerque in a closely fought third position as De Angelis not managing to find a way through, but Felipe Nasr on for a podium and misses out due to his mistake on the final lap. Will Power in 6th position. Raghunathan 8th position. Solid points for the Indian driver with Marcello in 9th. Moving back down through the field, Award managed to find a way through on Verone, but unable to catch up to Da Costa. And Wickens, the final points paying position. As the final drivers come across the line, just waiting on Raquelme, I believe, who has pretty much got the whole lap to go, as it wasn't too long ago that he unlapped himself from Giovinazzi. So here's Lundgaard, and Raquelme is a further 30 seconds behind him. So Lundgaard crosses the line. Again, another disappointing weekend for the Danish driver, but here is another driver who would be thoroughly disappointed with his feature race, making the same mistake twice, losing the front wing, has thrown away some very good points for Monaco this weekend. So across the line, and all drivers now finished. On to the official result, and it is Antonio Giovinazzi in 1st position, with Leclerc in 2nd, Albuquerque in 3rd, De Angelis in 4th position, and Nasr in 5th. Will Power finishes 6th position, Sheldon van der Linde in 7th, Mahivir Raghunathan in 8th, Marcello in 9th, Rosenqvist in 10th, Felix da Costa in 11th, O'Ward in 12th, and Facu Regalia in 13th position. Moving further down the order, Robert Wickens finished 14th, with Rafael Camara in 15th in the final points paying position, Marcus Ericsson 16th, and obviously Verone, I had forgotten, had a time penalty for his incident earlier with Marcello, so he's demoted down to 17th. Lorraine Cathcart in 18th, 19th for Magnussen, 20th for Kelvin van der Linde. Christian Lundgaard finished 21st, with Raquelme in 22nd. On to the retirement, and it's Sebastian Buemi crashing out in 23rd position, Villa Gomez with the transmission failure, Fuoco with the accident, and Whincup was disqualified as a result of that incident with Fuoco. And what was a pretty dramatic feature race in Division 2, it is back over to Chris.
Well, they were oh so close in the sprint race, and now they have actually won the feature. Well done to Italy. That's another new team to win in the Division 2, and yeah, that makes things very, very spicy. And also, good mention to India again. Mahivir Raghunathan was again just on fire. Gets the team some points. Means that they're definitely not a full team now, I guess. But well, we can see what that now does to the standings after those 2 races with Division 2. And Pato O'Ward is still in the lead on 91 points, but the gap is now 8 points to Felix Rosenqvist. Arthur Leclerc now has shot up with the good form that he's been in so far to 81 points, only 10 behind Pato O'Ward. Will Power still on 74, Sebastian Buemi in 70 points, Kevin Magnussen on 65, Jimmy Whincup on 61, Robert Wickens on 59, Philippe Albuquerque on 58, Antonio Felix da Costa on 56, Felipe Nasr 54, Stefan Raquelme with 51, Raffaele Marcello with 49 points, and then Antonio Giovinazzi with that win now promotes him straight up to 14th place in the driver standings, with Marcus Ericsson, Sacha Fenestro on 38 points, Roman De Angelis on 38, Leonardo Paulin-Rowley on 36, Lundgaard 35, Kelvin van der Linde 35, Sheldon van der Linde 22, Antonio Felix da Costa 18, James Hinchcliffe on 18, Nico Verone on 16 points, and then we have Mahivir Raghunathan now on 10 points, Bruno Senna on 9, and then we have Rafael come at 8, Facu Regalia 3 points on his first race, which is actually not too bad. Rafael Gomez with 1 point, and Lorraine Cathcart is the only driver with 0 points. And now we can see what that does to the nation standings. Australia are still in the lead, but only with 3 points in it, with Monaco right up behind them. Then Sweden is at third place, 122 points. Switzerland 119, Portugal 114, Canada also 114, Denmark on 100 points. There's now 7 teams that are in triple figures for points. Italy now very close with 94 points, Mexico now 92 points, Brazil 70 points, Argentina 59, South Africa 57, and then India with 10. Now, with Division 2 out of the way, is the final race of the day with Division 1, and Japan have locked out the front row. Naoki Yamamoto on pole, and Kamui Kobayashi just 3 thousandths behind him. Nick de Vries 800ths behind Naoki Yamamoto in third place. Sandy Stuvik again with a great qualifying in fourth. Paul de Resta with a fantastic qualifying, much needed for them, in fifth. Stoffel Van Dorn in sixth. Simon Pagenaud in seventh. Elfyn Evans again carrying his great form is going to start in 8th today. Daniel Godet in 9th, Sebastian Bourdais in 10th, Robin Franz in 11th, Joseph Newgarden in 12th, Natalie Liwadana Barrigol with a great qualifying I mentioned before in 13th, Shane Van Gisberg in 14th, Alex Blue 15th, Scott Dixon 16th, Carl Larson 17th, Max Hart 18th, Jack Aitken in 19th, René Rast and Andre Lotter with a disappointing qualifying for Germany in 20th and 21st, Philip Hansen in 22nd, Dries Van Tor in 23rd, Alex Dunn 24th, and then we have Ella Lloyd in 25th, and then James Collado in 26th. And now for the final race of the day is back to Ryan. Take it from here, buddy.
Back again here for one last time in Spa, Division 1 feature race, and it's an all Japan front row here with Yamamoto and Kobayashi leading the way into turn 1, and the lights are out. Who's going to get a good start now? So Kobayashi with the better start takes the lead, but we see someone firing up the inside. It looks like Dries Van Thor, or de Vries actually. So Nick de Vries goes through into second position. Yamamoto demoted down into third. Stuvik stays in fourth position, but Kobayashi out in the lead, just about hanging on there, and has actually managed to get a good run up Radion. Further on back, we're on board here with Van Dorn, so Stoffel Van Dorn up the inside of de Resta, but still, yes, does indeed get through. Danny Juncker goes through on Pagenaud to get 5th position. Yamamoto goes down into 4th position. Stuvik manages to get into 3rd. Kobayashi still hanging on to that race lead. So a fairly clean start through the field, something we've seen pretty much all weekend so far. And actually Lee Watanabe has had a good start as well. They're up into 7th position. Kobayashi as they come round and up the hill to Blanchimont for the first time. Over a second now has the Japanese driver over Nick de Vries. So Nick de Vries has kind of given himself a bit of a talking to over the week off, and has come back with a good start as Lee Wataragu goes up into 5th position. Takes Juncker and Pagenaud all in one foul swoop, so 5th position for the Thai driver. Dixon out of the race, so Dixon not even making the first goal, and he's been hit off by, was it Hart? There's one of the Irish cars there, and it is Hart, so Hart has taken Dixon out of this race, and that's going to have to be most likely a disqualification there for the Irish driver. And that's Palou off. So Palou has also been hit from behind by the looks of things, with the rear wheel missing into the source. So he's got one of the American drivers, is Larson. So Larson getting into trouble once again and taking out the Spanish driver. So Hansen also an incident as well. Let's put him in pit lane. There's confirmation that Hart has had a disqualification. And it must be the same for Larson. There we go. Confirmation that Larson and Hart have been disqualified from this race. So wherever they finish, as Robin Frines has a lock up there in 11th position. And that looks like a front wing miss in there for Paul de Resta. So Paul de Resta, who's now gone down into 12th position and is carrying on to plummet down the field, has lost his front wing somewhere. And a loose wheel for Juncadea, so it's all kicking off in the first 2 laps. Can Juncadea make it back to pit lane with that loose wheel? Or will he find himself having to retire? There you can see the Spanish driver slowly making his way down the bottom end through Stavalo, and there was some contact there. And is that Hart again? Is that Hart again has just hit into Juncadea off the track? I'll have to see a replay of that, but the Irish driver has definitely not had the cleanest of opening laps. Whether or not that will see further sanctions on the Irish driver. De Resta has managed to make it back to the pit lane. Alex Dunn at the back end of the field there. But Kobayashi setting a fastest lap of the race on the 2nd lap. 2 seconds ahead of De Vries. Stuvik in 3rd position still, with Yamamoto up into 4th. Or staying in 4th actually, I don't think they've managed to make a position back. Here is Stuvik all over the back end of De Vries. And in the background, it's pressure from both Thai drivers, as Lee Watanabe in 5th position is all over the back end of Yamamoto, and it goes up the inside, tries a move through at Piff Path, doesn't manage to get through. De Vries still under pressure from Stuvik. Stuvik lining up a move that comes through Blanchimont, a good drive there. Tucked up in the slipstream, he's going to try and go for the dummy now into the bus stop, but not close enough to make the move go. Meanwhile, in the background, what has his fellow countryman managed to do? And still staying in 5th position. So both drivers holding station for the time being, as Kobayashi continues to stay in the lead by 2.2 seconds. Says how Stuvik is definitely faster than De Vries, and potential undercut in the offing as we go back to Shane van Gisbergen in 13th position. Through into Leicon. Larson in 12th up ahead, so essentially running in 12th position is Van Gisbergen. Here's Stuvik still on the back end of De Vries. Lee Watanabe having another look at Yamamoto, but still finding a corner that's not so easy to overtake at. You have to be 100% committed there. Down at the bottom end through Stavalo. And Stuvik's going to be winding it up once again to try and find a way through. He's trying to have a look, definitely not a move. You have to be pretty much side by side there if you want to make a move into Blanchimont. and Stuvik was not, almost losing his front wing there. It was that close. So, another lap ticked off. Kobayashi not setting a blisteringly quick pace out front compared to what we saw in the previous feature race for Division 2, but it is each lap managing to eke out a tenth here and a tenth there. If you look further on back, and that looks to be Aitken going through on one of the Team Germany cars. Germany pretty much turning this weekend into a test weekend, as it looks like Lee Watanabe's lost part of the front wing coming out of Radion. So, as we were singing the praise of the Thai driver, who was having an amazing start to this feature race, it's all been thrown away with damage to the front wing. And Pagano goes through up into 5th position, and that's going to give a sigh of relief to Yamamoto, who was soaking up the pressure there in 4th position. Stuvik still unable to get through on De Vries. In the meantime, Newgarden all over the back end of Van Dorn. And coming up the hill, he's going to find a way through. He's not going to find a way through there. Has that scuppered any chance through into the bus stop? He doesn't seem quite close enough there. As we go back to the front, is Larson trying to make a nuisance of himself on Sebastian Bourdais. And it seems eventually Lee Watanabe's managed to make it back to pit lane and has dropped all the way down to 17th from 5th position. It's going to be hard to recover anything from there, having to pit so early and change up the strategy. And in the meantime, Stuvik still unable to find a way through on De Vries and has actually dropped back a little bit this time round. Kobayashi still leading, still eking out a bit here and there. Here's James Gallardo trying to pull a move on René Rast. You can see Lotterer and Rast all battling for position. It looks like a slow-moving Dries van Thor there. No, there doesn't appear to be any sort of obvious issue there. Driver who has done many laps here has Dries van Thor, obviously competing in the 24 Hours of Spa a number of occasions. Here is Jack Aitken, who is lining up a move on Hart. Obviously Hart being disqualified, so essentially this is more of a nuisance for Aitken, who wants to be going further on up the road to Van Gisbergen. But Aitken going for the dummy round the outside, goes to try and go up the inside, but unable to do so, and that's actually allowing Lloyd to catch up onto the back of them. This is a big gaggle of cars fighting over 16th position, so this isn't even for the points as it stands, although actually saying that. There are 2 cars further up the field who are disqualified, so actually this is the scrap for the final points paying positions. Up front, Stuvik, De Vries being commended on his defence. He's still running fairly good pace, considering he's having to defend from Stuvik and still keeping a watching brief on Kobayashi, who's Still only got a 2.9 second advantage with 6 laps completed, so unlike what we saw Leclerc do and Giovinazzi do earlier. But De Vries definitely under pressure now from Stuvik. Obviously Stuvik having a bit of a breather for a lap. And is all over the back of De Vries as we go on board with Stuvik. And it looks like, I think he tried making a move there, which didn't quite work as he dives down the inside. That's the first sort of show of effort into the final chicane we've seen from Stuvik on De Vries, so he's definitely starting to get a bit impatient now, and I think he feels he has the pace to go after Kobayashi in the lead if he can get rid of De Vries in front. Now, definitely looks as though Stuvik has got a good run onto the straight as Lotterer going in a bit deep there into turn 1. That's going to allow Dries van Thor to have a little bit of a sniff. And Stuvik's gone through, so whilst we were looking away, Stuvik has gone through into second position. He's going to go about chasing Kobayashi in the lead. Meanwhile, Dries van Thor goes through on Lotterer for 16th position. That's essentially going to be 14th position with the 2 cars disqualified ahead. But Lotterer doesn't look like he's finished just yet. As we see confirmation there, Stuvik has gone through, although it has cost him a bit of time, as he's 4.3 seconds off the back of Kobayashi, but we shall see in some clean air, and now he's definitely dispatched De Vries. Can he go off after Kobayashi? We'll see as we come through the first real timing intermediate to complete the lap. Does the gap go down at all? It was 4.3, it's now 4.2, so a slight improvement, a 10th pulled on that final sector. And it looks like, for sure, we have a race on our hands. The team have already said that they're potentially planning on an early pit stop for Stuvik, so a potential undercut for the Thai driver. Kobayashi, a fairly consistent pair of hands. He's been on the circuit for quite some time. Formula 1, Super Formula, and Japanese Super GT has also got to his resume, and World Endurance. More recently has done a wildcard event at the 24-hour of Spa for the Good Smile Racing team. So has done plenty of laps of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit over the years. But Stuvik definitely closing now, gap down to 3.9 seconds as we round the final sector to complete yet another lap. That'll be 9 laps in the book of the 22. So the pit window will now start to open. We'll start to see at the end of this lap, we'll expect to see some of the first drivers coming into pit. Actually, it might even be this at the end of this lap. that they've just completed, so we'll wait to see. It looks at the moment everyone staying out for at least one more lap. Others will be extending a lot further into this first stint, but Stuvik definitely with the bit between his teeth. Gap coming down even further, 3.6 seconds now, the gap between Kobayashi and Stuvik. De Vries not able to live with Stuvik at this pace and is being gradually dropped, but still comfortably ahead of Yamamoto, and that's Hansen, the once championship leader, struggling in 22nd position. He's got Paul Di Resta for company. Di Resta recovering from a bit of an incident. I think Hansen must have had an incident as well, as Di Resta goes up the inside. This is the battle for last position on circuit, and just as fiercely fought as it is at the front. And Kobayashi being told to box this lap, so at the end of lap 9, at the end of lap 10 actually, Stuvik also being told to box, so we're not going to see any form of change or difference in pit strategy. It's all going to come down to tyre preservation and general pace of each driver. So Kobayashi into pit lane, Stuvik won't be too far behind. This will promote De Vries into the lead as he carries on. And it looks like a problem there for Lloyd, as she's being passed in quite quick succession, so I think this could be an electrical issue for Lloyd. Now, the other important thing for Kobayashi and Stuvik is where they filter out compared to the rest of the field. Are they going to be stuck behind slower drivers? We'll see as we come across the first intermediate. Stuvik already within a second of Van Gisbergen. Kobayashi, we should see eventually, has a bit of gap between Larson and himself, so he's going to have some form of room to put in some lap time before he comes across the American driver. Here's Driessen for 21st position. Under pressure there from Ella Lloyd, who's also just come out of pit lane. Lloyd going up the inside of the Belgian driver. Now that's something you wouldn't expect to see. It seems that Ranfort is struggling with something there. De Vries still carrying on in the lead. Is he going to carry on for one more lap? Not seeing anything from the team to say box, and he does indeed carry on. Here's Stuvik trying to find a way through on Van Gisbergen, but Van Gisbergen not one of the easiest drivers to pass, although there is a definite tyre delta there. Van Gisbergen yet to stop and still on the original tyres he started on. Here is Yamamoto running in second position. Newgarden pits as puffs of smoke there from Newgarden, it seemed, as Robin Fries looks for a way through on the American driver, but that hasn't worked. Still at the front, De Vries carries on, holding the gap to Yamamoto behind at 3.9 seconds. Then you have Pagenaud and Elfyn Evans in 4th position for Wales. So this has been a turn up for the books for the Welsh team. and seems to be quite convincingly on the back end, and is also saying he's being held up by the Frenchman in front. He's calling to be boxed. Hopefully he's going to go for the undercut. Carry on. This is De Vries leading. As he carry on, as we've completed half race distance. Here's Yamamoto losing a bit of time, and it looks like he might be coming into pit lane now, and he does. De Vries is also pitted, so that means Pagenaud leads. Evans pits as well. That's allowed Van Dorn to carry on and go into second position with Newgarden in third, Robin Freins in fourth, and Kobayashi, as a result, is in fifth position, although he's 4 tenths behind Robin Freins, so he's going to get a little held up there. Stuvik still able to find a way past Van Gisbergen, and this has cost him big time. 6 seconds behind Kobayashi now as a result of it. Or over 6 seconds actually. Evans emerges from pit lane ahead of Lee Wataragu. Just about stays ahead of the Thai driver. So Evans being wheeled on from the team. Yamamoto up ahead, next to attack. Here's Hart, one of the disqualified drivers, essentially making a nuisance of himself. He doesn't know yet that he's been disqualified. Newgarden with Freins and Kobayashi all very close, and Kobayashi's not going to be enjoying getting held up here. De Vries has managed to cycle out in 8th position behind Van Gisbergen. Stuvik has managed to get through on Van Gisbergen, and as I say that, all the field there. Pagenaud, Van Dorn, actually Freins, Newgarden all come into pit. That's going to allow Stuvik through. How much time has he lost on Kobayashi? The gap was down to roughly 3 seconds between the pair of them. And we'll see as we come across the first timing marker of the lap to complete the first sector, which is just approaching at the end of the straight. So Kobayashi crosses that now, and we'll see from Stuvik 5 seconds. So Stuvik has managed to make some time up. It was approximately 7 seconds earlier, so managed to make back 2 seconds on the Japanese driver. Let's see if he can continue that sort of pace advantage into the rest of this final stint. Here's Newgarden, who has come out behind Van Dorn in 8th position. Lee Watanabe in 7th, although will be on some fairly used rubber towards the end of the race. Here's Freins up the inside of Larson, and that was very close. So Kobayashi leads. 5 seconds is the advantage at the moment. Here's further back. This is Andre Lotterer. Behind Hart, but essentially in a net 14th position for the German driver. Still trying to find our way through on the currently disqualified Irish driver as Elfyn Evans managed to secure the fastest lap of the race in 5th position in his pursuit of Yamamoto. Here's Newgarden very close to Lee Watanabe in 8th position. Van Dorn has managed to find a way through. Here's further back down the order Philip Hansen on the back end of De Resta. And Bourdais, obviously Bourdais has had some sort of issue somewhere and is now running in last position. 3 retirements so far. But here is Stuvik, who's gradually pulling in this, the gap to Kobayashi. Is now down to 4.6 seconds. James Collado having a look up the inside of Dries Van Thor, but unable to find a way through. Van Thor in the essential last points paying position with the 2 cars ahead of Hart and Larson being disqualified from this race. Here's Evans, who's now managed to catch up onto the back of Yamamoto and trying to find a way through. There is De Vries, unable to live with Stuvik it seems, but still running a good enough pace, but he's 6 seconds ahead of Yamamoto, nearly. It is Yamamoto under pressure from Elfyn Evans. Yamamoto taking a slightly defensive line for retaking the regular racing line into Lake Com. Elfyn Evans all over the back end of the Japanese driver, but still unable to find a way through. You see Pagenaud lurking in the background in 6th position, and if they carry on squabbling, they do run the risk of the Frenchman joining the party. Carl Larson trying to find a way through on Lee Wataragu in 9th position, and it is fairly obvious that with that early pit stop, the tyres are already screaming enough here on lap, or 15 laps completed, lap 16 at the moment of 22. Again, Yamamoto still under pressure from Elfyn Evans. This is a great performance from the Welsh driver. Goes for the dummy, but still not close enough. And all the while, Simon Pagenaud continues to close on these 2. Gap is now 1.5 seconds between Evans and Pagenaud. Now all Evans needs is a good run up the hill. Crests the car just right, which it looks as though he has done so, and he's well in the slipstream. Has he pulled out too early though? He's drawing level with Yamamoto, and he has taken that position into Lake Com. So 4th place for the Welsh driver. Yamamoto demoted to 5th, and it looks like Pagenaud's coming to join the party as well. Kobayashi trying to respond against Stuvik. The gap is 4.2 seconds between Kobayashi and Stuvik. If Stuvik misses out on this win, he's going to be kicking himself, potentially that the team pitted him when he did, and that he came out behind Newgarden, because that cost him quite a lot of time. Potentially with the pace that he was running, he may have wanted to gone a lap or so longer, so that he didn't filter out in that traffic, but that's the way the team have decided to play the strategy this time out. Still plenty of laps left to go with the gap as we come across the line. Goes under 4 seconds now, so 3.9 seconds. With a handful of laps left to go, has Stuvik left it a little too late. There is still time for drama as we look further on down the field, as we saw in both sprint races. There's Van Gisbergen with a lock up there in 13th position. That's allowed Ella Lloyd onto the back of him. And yeah, not going to get a move done there at the bottom of Eau Rouge, and that's really affected the drive there for Lloyd. In the meantime, Stuvik still catching Kobayashi, but also De Vries has managed to find a turn of pace, is now caught up onto the back of Stuvik. So 3.5 seconds is the gap between Kobayashi and Stuvik, but it's under a second now between Stuvik and De Vries. So where has this turn of pace come from with De Vries? It's going to be a sense of too little too late. There's Pagenaud coming through. The gap between Stuvik and De Vries, 0.6 of a second. And here's Lee Wataragu under pressure there from Robin Freins. Lock up further back there for Simon Pagenaud, who's chasing after Yamamoto. Evans has managed to pull 2 seconds on Yamamoto, but 10 seconds between himself and De Vries, and here is De Vries all over the back end of Stuvik, less than a second between the pair of them, and you can definitely see there Stuvik now becoming a little bit occupied with the driver behind, not closing in at the rate of knots that he was, and 3.3 seconds is the gap between Kobayashi and Stuvik on what is now lap 19 of 22. Kobayashi still keeping it cool. The team saying if they squabble, which it looks like is about to happen. Here we go. De Vries all over the back of Stuvik, so we cut to Hansen for some reason. But here in the chicane, who's going to be coming out on top in the chicane? De Vries was very close, but it's still Stuvik. Stuvik now having to squabble. Still takes a 10th out of Kobayashi, but not making the inroads into Kobayashi like he was. Stuvik and De Vries, 6 tenths separate them. It's going to be all about who gets a good drive up the hill, and it seems like De Vries is still trying to close and close and close. not quite close enough. Elvin's in the background. Elvin Evans in a fairly lonely 4th position now. Has pulled 3 seconds almost over Yamamoto. But a solid result so far as Rast is out of the race. So what was already a fairly difficult, and I don't know what happened there, if the transmission locked up there. It was indeed transmission failure for the German driver. He'll be happy to see the back end of that car today. As I said already, not the best of weekends for Germany. The gap at the front has come down even more. It is now 2.3 seconds between Kobayashi and Stuvik. But it is still under a second between Stuvik and De Vries. Further back, it's pretty much the same battle, but with the teammates. Lee Watanabe and Freins fighting for 9th position. Has Freins got the measure over Lee Watanabe as we skip back towards the front and then to the back again. Here is Hansen in 20th position, pretty much confirming what we've already said. Monza up next, a very high speed circuit. Here is De Resta under pressure here by Bourdais. This is the battle still for last position. Bourdais trying to find a way through, but that's not quite worked. Here's Kobayashi back at the front. 2.3 seconds is the gap between himself and Stuvik. Stuvik has managed to pull a little bit of breathing space between himself and De Vries, and actually De Vries has dropped off quite a bit this lap. But is it going to be a case of too little too late for Stuvik, as we only have the rest of this lap and one more lap to go until it will be checkered flag time. For everyone back, Freins still unable to find a way through for 9th position. And it just seems like, as it stands at the moment, barring any mistakes, as Aitken drives up the inside of Larson. Here is Stuvik, and across the line is there's contact with Yamamoto and Pagenaud there for 5th and 6th position. The gap up front as we start this final lap, 2.1 seconds, so providing Kobayashi makes no mistake, he's going to be home and dry for a race victory. Through the first intermediate, still Kobayashi leading by 1.9 seconds. Nick De Vries unable to hold on to Stuvik. Running 3rd position quite comfortably, 4.4 seconds ahead of Evans. And for the battle for essentially the final points paying position, but is under threat there from Hansen, Collado actually, and Collado goes through and takes that final points paying position from the Belgian driver. Bourdais in 22nd massive lock up there. There's going to be no improvement, but here is Kamui Kobayashi. He's just got Blanchimont to go, and the final chicane, and barring any possible issues with a 1.8 second advantage, Kamui Kobayashi of Japan comes round the final corner to win here in Spa. And a well-deserved win there for the Japanese driver, and a great result for Japan, as Yamamoto still stays fairly comfortable there for 5th position. Yep, so 1st and 5th place for Japan. A great haul of points there. It's the rest of the field that comes streaming through. Lee Watanabe in 9th position, so a few points there. And again, another good set of points there for Thailand. Ella Lloyd comes through. Hart, obviously, disqualification there, which allows Lotterer and Collado to take the last couple of places. But we shall wait for the confirmation as the final cars come through. Bourdais, the last to finish. And confirmation of Kamui Kobayashi taking the race win ahead of Sandy Stuvik and Nick de Vries in 3rd position. Elvin Evans with a good result in 4th position, with Yamamoto in 5th, Pagenaud in 6th, Van Dorn on home soil in 7th position, Newgarden in 8th, Lee Watanabe in 9th, and Robin Freins rounding out the top 10. Jack Aitken is in 11th position, with Van Gisbergen in 12th, and Ella Lloyd in 13th position. Moving further down the order, Lotterer and Collado, as I said, picking up the final points paying positions, with Van Thor in 16th, Dunn in 17th, Hansen in 18th, and De Resta 19th, with Bourdais in 20th in the end. René Rast 3 laps down, and Junkadea went out with a loose wheel. Pelot with an accident, with Dixon as well having the accident, Hart and Larson being disqualified from the event. And after another eventful feature race, it is back over to Chris.
A lot of teams there actually got a great result when they absolutely needed it. Netherlands with a podium, Elfyn Evans with a 4th backing up his sprint win, and Japan getting a 1st and 5th. A lot of important points for them there, which makes things very, very interesting. That has to be said. We can actually see that now going into the standings for Division 1. The drivers, Philip Hansen is in the lead still. He's been leading, I believe, since the very beginning. But he is now only 6 ahead of Sandy Stuvik on 81 points. And then Alex Pelot on 80 points, only 7 back from Philip Hansen, hunting him down. Naoki Yamamoto with another consistent result is now on 75 points. René Rast 74. Scott Dixon is 67 points. Shane Van Gisbergen is 61 points. Sebastian Bourdais at 53 points. Alex Dunn also 53. Simon Pagenaud as well on 53 points. Daniel Junkadea on 11th with 48 points. Nick de Vries now with 47. And then we have Carl Larson on 46 points. Kamui Kobayashi now at 45. Joseph Newgarden also 45. Elfyn Evans now up to 38 points ahead with Jack Aitken as well on 38. Stoffel Van Dorn on 35. Paul Arrest at 33, Andre Losser at 24, Dries Van Tor 24, Robin Freins 24 points, Max Hart 22, James Collado with 21 points, Nathan Diddley went to Navarro there with 13 points, Mick Schumacher for his race today with 11 points, and then Ella Lloyd 11 points too, and then we have Tadasuga Bekino 5, Tim Porter 3, Mark Houston's 1, and Alex and Vanina X both with nothing. But now this is where it gets interesting with the nation standings. New Zealand and Spain are tied on 128 points. Wow. And then we have Japan on 125, just 3 behind because of today. Very incredible results. Germany now with 109 points, England 108, France 106, and then we have Thailand with 94, USA with 91, Ireland 75, Netherlands 74, Scotland 71, and then Belgium with 60 points, and Wales now with 49. That bottom section regarding relegation looks so close. Well, that's round 6, the Belgian races in the books. We now look to head towards round 7, but before then we have an upgrade window. 3 races have passed, money has been collected, teams can now invest to see what they want to do to their cars, whether it be reliability, downforce or power. But they have to really think about this one because they've got the speed track of Monza, and then we have Fuji and then Hanoi at 7, 8 and 9 respectively. So they really have to think about what they're going to do to their cars. They will have a few days to decide, and then we'll be in Monza, same day, same time, in a fortnight's time. We also have the Grand Prix World Series race, which will be at the Pärnu circuit in Estonia. That'll be a very interesting one. I remember that race last time being very, very interesting. But until then, thank you so much for watching this. I'm Chris Kavaney, your host. Ryan Ferris has been your commentator, and this is the Retro Racing Managers League, signing off.